Hi, my name is Hannah. Welcome back to my channel. Let's just jump right into the book reviews. This first book was a recommendation from Melinda over at A Web of Stories, so I will make sure to link her channel down below. And I picked up The Connellys of County Down. Now, this is following Tara, and she is released from prison after serving 18 months on a drug charge. And she is being released, and we're kind of watching her trying to rebuild her life and reconnect with her brother and sister, who she's always been very close to. And we learn a little bit about their secrets and what's going on in their lives. Now, this book had one of those setups where you could see where it was going and you wanted it to stop. It was like, I can see what's gonna happen, and please don't let that happen. It's like watching a train crash in slow motion. You're like, stop, stop, stop. But then it ended up really being kind of heartwarming and worked out. And I just liked the message of, like that family love and support, even when you have issues. And I thought that that was really beautiful. So I enjoyed this book. Did it give me anxiety reading it? Yes. I was like, I just need to make sure that they're okay. It was enjoyable, and I really did like it. These family relationships that were complex, but also really lovely. So really enjoyed reading this book. Well, I don't know if I enjoyed every minute of reading this book because it did cause me stress, but overall, I thought it was a really fun book. The next two books that I am going to talk about were recommendations from the channel Books with Tofucado, and I will make sure to link her channel in the description down below. And so the first one that I picked up was The Haunting of Maddy, Clare by Simone St. James. Now, I've read a couple books previously of Simone St. James. I read The Sundown Motel and The Book of Cold Cases, and they're fun. They're a fun time. And so I was excited, and I felt like I knew what I was getting into picking up The Haunting of Maddy, Clare. Now, this was more of a historical book, where the other ones I'd read were more present day. This is following our main character in 1920s England, and she gets a job to help this ghost hunter, and they're gonna go out and communicate with the ghost, and the ghost will only interact with women. So he needs her to go interact with this ghost. So we know what's gonna happen right off the bat. We're gonna go look for a ghost, and we're gonna find a ghost, right? That's kind of what it is. I feel like for the horror elements, that was fine for me. I mean, not gruesome or anything, but kind of spooky ghost story. I enjoyed that part. For the mystery, I didn't feel like there was very much mystery to me. They kind of made a big deal out of, oh, here's the reveal. And I'm like, were we concerned about that? Was that really something that we didn't know? And so I just don't feel like as a mystery, it really did much for me. It had a romance in it that kind of worked. I got where it was going with the romance. I was fine with it. But then it had a few like sex scenes that just made it feel like not the genre I was going for. I'm like, I want a mystery thriller. And instead I got like a paranormal romance, and that wasn't quite what I was going for getting into this. So was it bad? No. Did I tear through it to see what happened at the end? Yes. Was it my favorite Simone St. James book? No. This was probably my least favorite one I've read from her so far, but it was fine. So if you want something just with good atmospheric, think 1920s, slightly creepy vibes, this is fine. But I just don't think I really was invested in any sort of mystery other than there's a ghost, and how can we get the ghost to rest? That was the whole thing. Now, the other book that I read was Cackle by Rachel Harrison, and this book was a ride. I had such a fun time. It is following Annie after a breakup, and she's moving to a new town to start a job as a teacher. she moves to this small town and the whole town is super friendly and everything's kind of perfect in this town. But there's this woman there who takes a big interest in our main character, Annie, and wants to be her friend. So this woman, Sophie, has a mansion in the woods and seems to maybe be a witch. And all the townspeople are kind of terrified of her. And so we get this friendship between Annie and Sophie, and what's gonna happen? Is Sophie actually going to hurt Annie? Does she have some nefarious, wicked witch plan? Or is she just actually seeking friendship, and the townspeople have some preconceived notion about what a witch is? And so you have this kind of, is this okay? Is this not? The main character, Annie, is the worst main character ever. She is just a huge doormat. And I get it because I think that it's supposed to be, witchcraft, taking back women's power kind of feeling, right? So in order to make that contrast, the author went with, she's gonna be the biggest doormat ever. Like, whatever anybody says, she'll just be like, okay, yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, you broke up with me? I guess I'll sleep on the futon till I can find a new place to live. Oh, I guess that's fine. Yeah, we're still friends. Like, it just was annoying. Also, there is only so many times I can read about a main character going home, crying herself to sleep, and eating tubs of ice cream until I'm just like feeling like I go into Edna mode, right? Where she's like, pull yourself together. And that's what I needed. But the witch thing and everything, like, this book was incredibly readable and at times hilarious. So it had so much humor. I have strong feelings about this book because a lot of it is easy to hate on, but it was so engaging, so readable, and I was just enjoying it. Like, if you want a book to just be fun, this book was fun. But there were things wrong with it, like the doormat of a main character. Some of the morals at the end, I really don't know what it was trying to do. I don't know what the point was of the book. I think that using witchcraft as maybe a stand-in for women's power and the main character kind of gaining that throughout the book was an interesting journey. But then you get to the end and you're like, oh no, I don't know if that was a good thing. And then you're like, okay, well, maybe it's talking about female friendships. But then you're looking at, I think Sophie's actually kind of toxic and manipulative. So are we really good with that? I don't know. There were just too many things that I'm like, I don't know if this was really well done, but I had a great time reading it. So I do kind of recommend this book, even though, be aware, it has so many problems, but it was so fun. I had just a great time. I enjoyed my entire time with the book and I just tore through it. Like, to the point where I was reading this as an ebook, and usually I have an ebook and an audiobook going, but I was, walking around, and normally when I'm walking, I'll have an audiobook in, but I couldn't because I needed to know what happened, and I'm being that obnoxious person, like, must read my book while I'm walking, because I needed to know, and I really liked it. So this next book I added to my list because of the channel Your True Shelf, so I will make sure to link her channel down below, and I picked up the book Memphis by Tara M. Stringfellow. And this is one of those sweeping intergenerational stories. We have 3 generations of a Southern Black family and their history in Memphis, in the city of Memphis. It is dealing with a lot of that intergenerational trauma and racism and the history of racism and how it has affected the family. There were some really good things about this. I think there should be some sort of a trigger warning on it. There were some things that happened to a young child in this book that were awful and probably were not something I wanted to pick up. The author tried to address it and tried to really work this into the story, and it was well done, but I was not, like, my heart hurt. So if you can't handle children in dangerous situations, like really dangerous situations, this might not be for you, because I know that sometimes it works for me and sometimes I'm like, my life has been ruined, I must stare at this wall for a while, you know. So that's a little rough. At times, because it was jumping through kind of 3 timelines, we have Joan, we follow her timeline as they move back to their Memphis home with her aunt because her mother was leaving her abusive husband, right? So we have that timeline. Then we also have the timeline of the aunt and the mother when they were young growing up. And then we also have the grandmother, and her husband was the first Black detective in the city and was murdered. And so we have these different timelines. And I do think that at times I almost was a little confused about what timeline we were in. And maybe that was just me not being great at paying attention, but it would just take me a minute, like, okay, when was this? Because it also did that thing where it jumps through time a lot. So it's not told in a super linear sort of way. It's like, okay, well, here's what happened this day, then this is what happened 10 years before, and this is what happens 10 years after, and it just keeps jumping back. And I think by the end, it had woven together a very good story, but at times I was a little lost. And so that was a little bit rough, but overall, it was a very impactful story, really well done. The writing was beautiful. And so I think just pay attention to what time period and what year you're in when you're reading the book, and be aware that there is some child endangerment that may drive you nuts. But other than that, this was a really, really good book, and I do highly recommend it. And that is what I have read this past week. I've already finished a couple other books that I will leave for the next video. But if you have any thoughts about these books, please leave them down in the comments below, and I will see you all on the next one.